Achieving your goals and your dreams requires you to take step-by-step actions every day, often out of your comfort zone. And in order to do that, that requires you to remove the fears and the feelings involved in taking those actions that are really keeping you back from, the logical part of your career, your business, whatever it is. And that isn't to say that, you shouldn't have that passion, because you should have that emotional connection to what you're making. Like if you're a designer, you should have that passion, your purpose, your why, that drives you and leads you to make your decisions, especially in times where like your fear and your anxiety can take over. It's a nice reminder to come back to your passion to really propel you forward. But it is also just as important to use your logical thinking to, like I said, take those step-by-step actions every single day. Like if you are, you work in an office and you're pitching an idea to, the rest of the business, or you're pitching it to a potential client or a partner, it is, while you're prepping your pitch, you shouldn't be really thinking about what if they hate it, what if they don't like this, what if they hate my style, what if this, what if that. That isn't really a time for the emotion to come in. That is a time to be logical and to think about the steps that you need to do to prep for your pitch. So that could be, making sure your idea is, outlined and it's properly communicated to, the other business, to the partner, and making sure that they can see the benefit in it for them. Because, at the end of the day, the main idea is to make the idea beneficial for us and beneficial for the other partner. So we want to communicate it in that way to them. So we're thinking the logical aspect right then. We're not really in our emotions. But then after you present and after you've had that conversation, then you can really bring in the emotion. You can feel excited that you got through the presentation, that you were able to present, you were confident in that. You can also be excited if they want to work together with you. You could be, if they want to think more about the decision to work with you, it could be a little bit nerve-wracking because you're like waiting in that interim for them to make the decision and to come back to you. Or you could also feel sad if they turn up the opportunity to work with you. But that doesn't really have any bearing on your worth or your talents, your gifts, whatever, because it could just be, not the right time. There have been times where I've tried to work with people, or, vice versa, and it just wasn't the right time. I had other things going on. I can remember a situation now. I had other like family things going on, and we ended up working together maybe like within, 6 to 10 months, like after that. And it was a lot of fun. But it just wasn't the right time for me. And, their team was very, very understanding about that. And, we were like, okay, we just accepted it. And then we worked together later on. So sometimes there are times where just because a situation isn't right for us then, an opportunity isn't right for us then, doesn't mean that it isn't going to work out later on down the line. And again, that is a time where you are balancing your emotions with your logic. Like, I'm sure on the other end, they might have been a little bit sad that they couldn't work with me in that time, but they were also logical, knowing that, if we keep pushing this person, they might not want to work with us. And also vice versa, if you keep pushing somebody, they might not want to work with you at all. So giving them that, that understanding, that logical understanding that it will work out if it's supposed to. So as long as, you are sticking with your purpose, your passion, and what you feel called to do, what you feel is right for you, things will always work out the way they're supposed to. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it in that moment. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes it doesn't feel like things are working out. Sometimes they can feel like really meek and I think I wanted to say bleak, whatever. Just not, things just are not looking up. But it is also a time, when those anxieties, when those fears, that sadness comes in, it's a time to remind yourself of why you are doing what you're doing. And again, if you're like a designer, entrepreneur, business owner, and you're coming across like hard times, it can be really important to, to have that faith and to remind yourself of why you even started in the first place and what your why is. And things like that. So I think just going back to what I was saying at first, achieving your goals really requires you to balance the logic with the emotion, your heart and your head, because sometimes we can really get in the way of that, and we can let our emotions, we can either be super emotional or like super logical where the emotion is disconnected. But finding the balance between the two, figuring out, you know, how that dance works, in the best way for you, and that it can be different for everybody, but just figuring out the logic with the emotion is just really, really key to achieving your goals. Not saying that you can't achieve them, but I think in ways that where you don't feel overly emotional or overly logical, where again, they're balanced and you are making the decisions and you have that momentum to keep you going. So I think it is most important, like I was talking about the pitch, giving a pitch, having your logic in your decision making, in your tasks, because, well, I'll just give an example. When I make jewelry, I make sure that I have the right amount of wire for, you know, if I'm making a pair of earrings, or, you know, I have the right amount of chain if I'm making a necklace, and I measure those things on a ruler. So that is something that is logistic. That is, it's a number. It is the same every single time, and I'm not letting my emotions get in the way of that. And I've noticed at the times that I have let my emotions get in the way of it, or I've been making something, you know, I'm soldering it with my torch, and I end up like melting it because I'm like so in my emotions. I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing logically, and I end up melting it. And then I got to start over because I've melted it. And, you know, in order to reshape it, it's not going to look the way that, you know, the piece looks on the website. So it's figuring out the balance, like I said, between your logic and your emotion, and figuring out where those two things fit in every type of situation. And going through my little journal here, this is your first video. I write in my journal, and then I, you know, after I've done reflecting, I bring it to you guys with my little cup of tea. And there's like a bitter aftertaste to this. I don't really love this one. Yes, finding the balance between our heart and our head when we need to be emotional and logical is the key to bringing our dreams into our reality. And like I said, you can still do that even if you are more emotional or you're more logical. And they aren't exactly balanced, but I feel like when I've been more emotional, just speaking from personal experience, when I've been more emotional, it has taken me longer to achieve a certain goal. Like I said, it took me longer to make that pair of earrings because I melted it and I was super emotional and I wasn't thinking logically about the task at hand. But I still ended up, you know, getting it done. I got the order out. It was what it was. But, you know, it just took me a little bit longer. And it took me something to learn. So I think when we balance that, we can, I don't want to say skip some steps, but I mean, we can get out of our own way, basically. And you do have that dream for a reason. But I wouldn't forget that. I would just always come back to that. The passion and the purpose that you have is for a reason. You have that idea for a reason in this lifetime. You're meant to, in whatever capacity that you have your dream, you're meant to bring that into your reality. You're meant to make that real. And acknowledging that it's something that you love and that you care for is vital at times when you might wonder if you're good enough, if you can even make that dream a reality. Sometimes we can get those anxieties and those fears. And it's vital, like I said, to bring your passion back in and to remind yourself of that. And it's also vital to it's just as important to use logic when getting through your daily tasks. And like I said, with that example, I just made sure I had the right amount of pieces, you know, the right length of pieces, the right length of wire, the right size gemstones, like right colors, whatever it was. And I'm just thinking logistically at that point. I'm not putting my feelings into what I'm doing. So that was a time that I really needed to balance my logic with my emotion. And Oh yeah, this brings me to my last couple sentences. So bringing your dreams into reality requires you to balance your logical thinking and your emotional feeling, figuring out the places they each belong and honoring that in your decision making each day. Again, you have that dream for a reason. You just need to find that balance to bring it to life. So I think, we shouldn't let ourselves deter ourselves from bringing our dreams into reality. And I think a lot of times, especially at the starting point of making a decision, right? Because when we're at the beginning, we can't see the end, and we don't know if we have this idea, it's going to work out. But as long as you are following your passion, even if, you're going this way and your passion kind of tweaks a little bit this way, and then maybe it comes way over here, and then you as long as you are focusing on what you feel called to do at that moment, at that day, I think that's the best that we can do, right? We can't see the end goal, and it can shift along whenever, however, in whichever direction. So as long as you are sticking with your passion and, you're balancing your emotion, your logic, like I said, especially in the beginning when we can't, I think my hair keeps itching me. Especially in the beginning when we can't see the end goal in sight, when we don't know how it's going to end up, we don't even know if this is going to be worth it. I completely understand that, because I've been in the beginning of situations and in beginning stages of like projects and stuff like that, where I was just automatically in my emotions and thinking, this can't work out. This isn't right. Like, I can't do this. But I literally went step by step of the things I had to do. This day I'm gonna make because I'm working on a project right now. Because I'm making 15 pairs of earrings. Say I'm making 2 this day, 2 this day, 4 this day, because I got less to do that day. So I want to spend more time on that. And I'm just thinking of it logistically. And then when I get to make those, okay, I have to plug in my this tool an hour ahead so it has time to heat up. I'm gonna cut out these lengths of wire because this is what I know I need. I'm gonna set aside, make sure I got my polishing stuff ready. So it's just the logistics that I'm thinking about, because that is something that I want to get done. I already have the emotion, the passion that is pushing me to keep going. But when I'm in my tasks, I am just thinking about what I've got to do. And that's as simple as it can be. Again, sometimes I think we get in our own way. We overcomplicate things when we really don't have to. We can just think logically about it and keep reminding ourselves, or even, when we do have those fears and those worrying thoughts, to, shut them down, because at the end of the day, they're just thoughts. They're not our reality. I said this in a recent video, that you have that dream for a reason. You have been selected for, that job, that project, that partnership for a reason, and because those other people saw something in you. So don't second guess yourself. You are, you're meant to do that right now. Even if it's for 5 years, 10 years, if it's for just a month, if it's a one-time thing, like if it's a partnership, that is something that is meant for you. Could lead you somewhere else. You never know. But just make sure you are aligned with your purpose and your passion, your intuition, whatever you feel is meant for you. Like I said, that can change day to day as well. It can slightly shift. You could have an epiphany and you're like, well, I kind of want to take it in this direction. I want to try a little bit something different with my skills. So, it's however the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, however that speaks to you. So I hope this was something maybe that was helpful to hear. It was definitely something helpful for me to hear and to write down to and to reflect on. Just working with my logical mind more. And I've noticed that within the past couple of days. Yesterday I was super logical and I just got my work done, which felt really, really good. So, just trying to do more of that, just sitting down and getting my work done, because when I really add in the emotion, I don't get anywhere, or I have to redo things. So, again, hope that was helpful. Leave me a comment if it was, like and subscribe if you want to see more, but I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.